Live. And now let's see what is going on.
I
Um,
think we're live. I see the broadcast live.
yes, we
So,
are
hi,
live.
Catherine. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. And how about you, Haysing?
I'm doing well. I'm just recovering from other bunch of health issues, but I'm feeling really strong. And I am so glad we could do this again. We had kind of 3 week hiatus, but this is something that a lot of people in both of our networks were
Yes.
keenly interested. This is a media review time for a lot of companies, especially financial services industry in North America. So let us introduce ourselves to those people who might be joining us for the first time. So would you like me to go first, Catherine?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so whoever is joining us today live or replay, very nice to meet you. My name is Haysing Han, and I'm a woman leadership coach. And I'm also certified high performance coach, and same certification as Catherine. And this topic means a lot to me because two seemingly unfair reviews I had in a very respectful large corporation literally changed the trajectory of my career. So
Mhm.
I learned a lot personally and professionally, and I am so eager to share what I learned and what managers, as well as their direct reports, can do things differently to have really productive discussion for the organization as well as for themselves. So, Catherine?
So, myself, I'm a former CEO who turned into a C-suite coach, and my mission is to bring simply more corporate women into the C-suite because I strongly believe into the advantage of female leadership from a diversity perspective. So, yeah, I think it is a very sensitive. Topic because it can go good or badly and in a good way. And also because there are a lot of discussions about, yeah, should we really keep this formal performance review the annual one, or should we just do it on a fly day per day or monthly basis? Which seems, I mean, pretty fair as a comment, as a question. So there has been some employers getting rid of the traditional format and others who continue to do it.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, in an ideal world, there shouldn't be any formally written up performance appraisal, and
Yeah.
there shouldn't be any compensation, variable compensation that should be tied to this discussion. But sadly, that is what's going on in large corporations, and I've seen a lot of my colleagues and peers who really struggle with the feedback they're getting because often what happens is it's not that people are not open to feedback, but the feedback is very vague at best, and it lacks specifically that person has to do over the next 6 months or 3 months to to have more productive discussion and actually feel the progress they're making, both from managers and employee perspective. So when I think about both sides of the coin, they all want the same thing, but we really do not know how to have constructive performance. And it should be more like development discussion, not performance discussion.
Yeah. It
However,
is
yeah,
true. Yeah, it is true. But you know what? With regard to the compensation and potentially also bonus discussions, the thing is that managers, usually within corporations at least, don't have really a say what is going to happen or the range of or the amount of salary they
yes,
will get to be distributed amongst their teams on one side, and that often whenever there is a bonus which is tied into the whole discussion, it will depend on the financial result of the company, and
yes,
it is the C-suite or the global C-suite
yeah.
which is then discussing and defining how much will be distributed. So there are three sources, potential sources of frustration on both
Yes.
sides. The first one is maybe that the performance discussion doesn't go very well, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The second
Mm-hmm.
one is about the compensation. What will really come out and how much is it really tied to the performance or the efforts I have put into my work as an
Yeah.
employee? And the third one is, well, how will it really look like from a bonus perspective?
Yes, yes. I think I'm so glad that you covered that aspect, Catherine, because I was going to ask. You and I both have discussion with a lot of women at varying levels of seniority and experience level, right? So some of the things that I'm hearing from millennial, they've been in the workforce for more than 5 years, but less than 10 years.
Mhm.
And a lot of ladies, even especially in management consulting, and they're putting in 70 plus hours per week, and they talk about, I didn't know it was possible for me to pursue growth and career and have some level of work and life balance. And I didn't know there is the structure of what's considered during performance appraisal and development discussion and what goes into it. Because what happens is when we get hired by a big company, we've got employee agreement or contract, whatever you would call it. But how many people really read that and understand, especially if there is variable compensation aspect that's tied to performance? Because I didn't know this until I joined large corporations that have formal appraisal that is also tied to your variable compensation. So as Catherine very summarized, there is financial strength and profit aspect of the company if it's a public company, and there is a team element if it's a good culture. They always try to compensate and evaluate people based on team performance. But then there is individual aspects. So today we're focusing our discussion around individual aspects, something that you have control over. But even within individual aspect, there is concrete, tangible accomplishment, and there is a relationship component. So this relationship component is often what trip people up, because there is a lot of subjectivity involved,
Mhm.
and then there's discussion that can go in the not very constructive direction, because both managers and their direct report do not have discussions often enough. It should never be. I mean, Catherine and I talked about it before we started this live. These discussions should happen every day, or at least once a month. It should not necessarily be twice a year, a 1 year formal appraisal, and put into written up in a system, and then you get a rating. Like, are you average? Are you like you've hired development? Or are you higher than average, or are you outstanding, right? So one of the things that I see many really like focused, ambitious people struggle with is they did really well at school, right? So if it's not an A, it can't be good,
Yeah, but
right?
see, I mean, this is a typical discussion I had
Mm-hmm.
so for so many years. So when you look at a job description and with all the skills which are required, the average column means that your skills or what you produce as a result fits the job description. So meaning what is said or called as hello, Lara, nice to see you. What is called the average is not, it's a poor denomination of the word. It means that you are compliant with the expectation for the job. So the average column in the middle is a good one. It is, if you are below or one above, it shows that you are either ready, I mean, that you can move really good in a good way, that your shoe starts to become too small. And if you are 2 years consecutive either as a D, meaning for being bad, an A for being excellent. It means I would not wait for 3 years before you start thinking as the employee to go into a new role. You just say, okay, it shows that you are ready to really to jumpstart your next role. And maybe not the first year, because it's good to have it, to have a confirmation the second time. But I mean, whatever the second time is it half a year? Is it 1 year? Whatever the company uses. If there is 2 years in a row, you are not performing well. It can mean either, and this is often happening in management consulting. You're no more there. It's clear. Or you are not suited for the role for whatever reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
and
go ahead.
really keep the average. Even if you're a high performer and you want to show off and you want to jumpstart your career, it is considered the middle column as the one which gives you where you can anchor your performance, and where you can say, okay, I was delivering upon expectation.
Yeah. So let's just move on to the common mistakes managers make. Like, what could you think of in terms of 2-3 things? Because I honestly believe the majority of people mean well. And a lot of time these are misunderstanding and expectations not clearly expressed and set.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a manager, especially if you want to talk about the development area for that person for the year or for the next 6 months, in addition to meeting the job requirements, there are two aspects of things. And often what we call like key success indicator or key performance indicators are not clearly defined.
No.
And
Yeah.
I've reported to people and I manage people, but it is really, really difficult aspect of things. And then, so what do you think there are 2-3 things that you could think of that managers sometimes, well-intended managers overlook, not necessarily mistakes, but overlook in terms of communicating clearly?
Well, I would say it is first what makes managers not being kind of sloppy is when they have too large teams. I think that if you have between 8 to 12 people, that's the max, because else you don't really have the time dedicated to do a real performance review, but also to define what will be the performance that you need. And there's also one thing. I think that what managers are doing really, really bad is that there is no cascade from the top to the let's say to the last layer of the hierarchy. So it means that a middle manager might give something which is completely focused on his or her what is necessary for them, but which doesn't tie within the overall topic. So I would really start as a senior leader just to make sure that there's 1 to 3 objectives that the management team agrees upon, that they all have the same, are running in the same direction, okay,
Yes.
during the year. And so that they have maybe another 3 to 5, which are dedicated and tailored really to the needs of the team and of the individual. So I think this is one of the where one source of frustration, because if then the financial results are, for whatever reasons, are not in line with the expectation of corporate, of global corporate or whatever. And then you, as a person, you're saying, but I did everything. And you're punishing me because, I mean, I wasn't even involved maybe
Yeah.
in the achievement of the revenue and the profit. And you're still, I mean, punishing me. And this is one of the most common mistakes and which is so avoidable.
Right, right. So I think you mentioned something very important there. So I call this, it's my own language, but I called it leader's intent. So what is the number one or number two things that you have to really do it? As a senior manager in a large organization, the difficulty I faced at the time is a very practical discussion. It's not, it's that leaders never lacked intent, but it was so high level, so aspirational. It was not outcome based.
Mhm.
So I find it really hard as a person to execute and motivate people. And I'm like, okay, you're like blue skying the idea of aspiration. And and so, but they, I mean, senior executive, they all have their P&L numbers. They don't really necessarily talk about it with us. However, they do have it. But then they're focusing on this aspirational thing, which they cannot articulate into outcomes. So I had to fill in the void in terms of what does that mean? So my CMO wants to do this, and then she says it in a very like fluffy way. Then SVP wants to say another level fluffy way, and then it goes to VP in fluffy way. And I was like, okay, so let's try to make it really tangible in terms of the projects we have, the budget we have.
Mhm.
And so that's a challenge, first of all, I think.
Mhm.
Because and then even during like I'm going off tangent a little bit here, but the reason why many people struggle so much, especially middle management, to encourage people who are working from home is because this leader's intent and these are priorities are not articulated in a way that people can actually rally their team to. It was way too aspirational. It's not like, why would you care? So I'm just making it as an example. If I have 5 people on my team, I know what needs to get done that week. If it
Mhm.
gets done, I really personally didn't care that person worked late at night or during the day, as long as it gets done, unless that person has primary responsibility to support somebody during business hours. But one of the things that I heard time and time again during COVID and all this great resignation in the US was, instead of working from 8:30 till 5:30, it became 7:30 till 6:30,
Yeah.
and 7 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. till 8 o'clock. Because of this fear-driven, people cannot articulate what they want from the team. If you take the time to think about what do you want to accomplish this week, yourself and your team, that is aligned to your boss, then you wouldn't really drive people in a
And
way that, right?
and it is so true. I think the inability of many leaders, and let's be frank, there are many senior leaders who are doing it in between two other tasks, major tasks. So they're not really there, to really define their thing. And I think it has often to do with, especially now within COVID or with COVID, with the feeling of loss of power of leaders, of managers. And I think that it is absolutely essential that power over someone is not what defines a leader or
Leadership,
manager.
yes.
I mean, they know. I think that the middle management really knows what needs to be done. And I think that often from a senior perspective, they don't really care what needs to be done in the details. So it is like a sandwich position in which the middle managers are in, and which is really uncomfortable. And I think that you don't need to be aspirational. You have, as you said it, I mean, and you're a number person. You have the budgets, you know exactly what is expected from you, what you can reach. Maybe that you put a project in it, which is one of the major projects which needs to be accomplished. And you put the 2 to 3 key items on which you will be measured. And then you look at maybe at soft skills such as your ability to communicate, your ability to move people forward, even if there is, for whatever, a barrier or something unexpected. How can we still overcome adversity, for instance, or things like this? But it is, for me, a performance review shall always be, on one side, financial, but also the evolution and the growth of the person. And how can we make sure, as managers and leaders, that we have talented people who continue to blossom underneath of us, if I may say so, because they are the next generation of leaders and managers. And I think that, as for young people, don't get, I mean, don't get discouraged. I mean, just know yourself exactly what is important to you in relationship to the project or to the work that you need to accomplish, and see how it is, how maybe you can tie it to the budget achievements or margin achievements or whatever it is. And then also, it is like with your career, always sit in the driver's seat, pardon, of your own performance review criteria. Don't let your boss simply define everything. Ask also for the ones which are important to you, because this is going to set up, how should I say, leave a mark and an impression with your leaders, because they are going to say, "Ooh, this person thinks for himself or herself."
Yeah, definitely. So that's perfect segue. You read my mind. So I wanted to also mention a few things that, sorry if I call them employees, but it's like, if you're not people manager, you're actually independent contributor, I would call them employees for the sake of this discussion. So as Catherine said, really senior leaders, depending on your level, but usually senior leaders are trying to set the vision. They're not how people. They're trained to set the vision that brings people together. So then there is different hierarchy of people in larger organization, and mid-manager or maybe up to VP levels job to make it more outcome based in terms of project success, right? From employee perspective, I wish I knew this. Like, hindsight is 2020. I think one of the things that people really get caught up, especially people who aspire to move up, not for their sake, but that's important. That means growth to them. And when they are not getting what they anticipate, what they want, which is, yes, solid is a good thing. Solid is a good rating. That means you're doing your job. But if you're aspirational, I mean, you're ambitious, like, I want to go to the next level. I want to be considered, at least I'm doing better than solid. I'm high performer. I'm an outstanding performer. And this is one indication why I'm ready for the next role. If that's you, here is what I would suggest. Like, I didn't do this very well. It is your responsibility to ask your manager what's considered doing your job, what's considered above and beyond. I mean, you have an idea, but the issues are what you think is one aspect of things. It's about relationship, right? What you consider above and beyond, and keep working on this and keep your head down and working on this, is not going to get you anywhere. So you have to have a discussion with your manager, your manager's manager, or your even internal partners. What's considered value
as a success,
right? So then you have to make sure, how do I know that? Because ask very good question and say less and listen more what your manager or leaders say, or your business partners say. What do they consider as value? What not what you think as value? Then you ask them, how would I know? How would I know? And how would you know I'm adding more than expected value? And you have to kind of agree on what is mutual beneficial outcome. Then, while doing that, it's going to help you build relationship skills and communication skills. You're not going to be good at it at first. There will be some mistakes and there will be some learnings, but the more you do it, the better you're going to become. So Catherine and I studied with this other thing that talk about don't be a project queen. Don't keep your head down and work on project and think that that's it. Because that just talks about one project success. That's not taking you to the next level. If that's what people think that's going to take, and that's why getting a higher rating or outstanding rating is more important, open your eyes, because that is not set you up as high potential. Does that make sense? I mean, that's pretty much what I learned.
It makes sense. And there's also another topic. And I think I'm going to have some peers who are going to chop my head. um, there might be also some political game in it. So
Absolutely.
and so what I would do is really ask some senior leaders, what are the three adjectives, or what are they considering as being successful, and take it and note it down, and also look for yourself. And this is, by the way, something that Kala Harris said one day, and I thought, oh, she's really smart. She's really sassy and smart, this woman. And she said, and look at your own three adjectives, which you want to achieve within the next year, and see if there's some correlation, but find the common ground between the adjectives of the company and yours, and see how you can come closer to them. If you can't, well, then the company is anyway not a good fit for you. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
And so now comes the politics. For whatever reason, there might be an internal discussion about how many people, for instance, we are going to let climb up the ladder. So there might be people who know exactly, for instance, within that team of 100 or let's say 200 people, they can only promote, let's say, 5 people to the rank at this level, at a higher level. And they're going to look out, because they have no other choice, to look out to see if they can somehow squeeze in a performance which that is not maybe really fair. And it doesn't happen very often, but it can, depending on the toxicity of the political one of the company. Okay. So if you have that and it happens to you the second time, you better go and leave the company, because it means that there are unfair rules being played. And I can even go further, because it can go even way further, but I don't want to do it now. But if you only by following what you said, Haysing, it will give a millennium the information needed, so that not only, I mean, every employee or team member, I prefer to call them team members, to align what they think they should deliver with what is expected. And there we come again, about expectations, framing, pre-framing, and reframing some of your deliverables also. That is so necessary. And this should be done, by the way, during all the year, so that your manager knows exactly that, yes, I can count on Haysing. She's there and she's performing and overperforming, and she knows how to handle. I don't have to handle her all the time or to manage her. She's a doer. She delivers upon expectation, and always look at to deliver upon expectation. But as you said, by knowing exactly what is expected or considered a success from a top level.
So may I share my own personal experience, so that just to make it crystal clear to people who are listening or watching as a replay? So I hope people will learn from my mistake. I was in a situation where I was having a discussion with somebody 3 levels higher than I was. And I was getting frustrated personally because I was acing everything and I was getting good, ratings and recognition, but I wasn't going anywhere. And so I very clearly articulated my desire to go to the next level, and I'm behind. And I expressed why I feel like I should have been there already, and I don't know what's not working. But I think one thing that I didn't do at the time, it was the leader was a very kind person, but I find those leaders not doing this service to people by not articulating exactly what the other person has to do. So this happens a lot in female leaders. I'm not bringing the entire gender down, but they're trying to be nice and trying to protect you. So they say things like, in a very general term, your job is respectfully asking, I'm probing a couple more questions. So what she told me was, I see you there in 2 years, which is her way of saying you're not ready, without really telling me why I'm not ready. And my heart sank, but I was busy worrying about my feelings at the time. But I wish, in hindsight, you need to really be calm and collected and ask, I respect your opinion. What are the number one thing that I need to work on over the next 3 months to make it a 6 months aspirational goal as opposed to 2 years? Because sometimes you have to ask question in a way, at a pace, in a tone that is non-threatening, sincerely asking for, help me understand what is one thing that I'm not doing that I should be doing. If you, in your view, that I'm ready in 2 years, what do I need to demonstrate over the next 3 months to change that view? Because I was hurt and I didn't ask that question. And you should ask that question, and you should ask in a way that is collaborative, and you should really ask the way, because what you're going to get out of, there are two things. The person will respect you more and give you some information, even if it's not everything. You're going to leave the meeting room more clear in terms of what you need to do. Or you'll find out you have no chance, right? Because depending on how that person says it, you're basically saying, hey, what is my strategy then? Because I think I'm 2 years behind from where I should be. And this person who's going to make it happen for me says another 2 years. That means 4 years of your career, you're not going anywhere in the direction you want to be based on who you want to be. Then you have to think to yourself, is that the place I want to stay for another 2 years? Or do I want to really rethink what's my career goal? Where am I? What kind of help I need to get at this moment? Right?
And can I suggest even further? And this is the reason why I'm saying, do never, ever, 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 and I'm serious when saying that, making your career ascension depend upon one person, your direct manager. Never, ever. Always try to at least have also HR, and depending on the quality of the people, and because depending on the organizational form, it can be something, either shared service and a shared function, meaning having also to look out for other businesses within a corporation, and etc. So depending how close they are with the people. But I would definitely always have or draw my own roadmap of what I want to achieve, what is necessary to achieve that. I mean, as you said it, also asking to senior people what they consider as being a successful progression, because it will show you where they are putting the focus on it. And then I would say, okay, here I am. This is what I want, and why I'm the right person to have this role. Never ask your direct manager, because if a manager tells me, also for myself, you're not ready yet, I'm just thinking, you know what? I mean, you're not the person. I mean, either you don't know what you're saying, and especially with what happened to you, if in this case, it was a woman, if she was not even able to tell you, okay, you're here, but I'm expecting from you this and this, so that together, and here comes the clue, so that together we can make sure that you can progress and get into your next role. If the person doesn't take that commitment and says, together we're going to look out that we can make it happen, you can be sure that you will never have her backup.
Yeah, important thing. We were on a mission to keep this conversation tight today, and we've got both Catherine and I are certified high performance coaches, and we've got things that are scientifically proven curriculum cannot be shared over one live event, unfortunately. So you have questions and reach out to Catherine or myself separately. However, as a parting note, I want you to give listeners a couple of things they must be doing in order to have the most productive conversation, performance conversation, or development conversation for their mid-year review in May, or some people might be year end. And better yet, don't wait for your review time. Do it next week. So now, Catherine, give people some wisdom, a couple of things they should be thinking about in order to frame the conversation in a most productive way.
I would I would definitely be ready, know my metrics, my results, what I achieved. As you said, it is something where you have to shower almost your manager with your results and the progress that you're making. This is one thing. The second thing is, if you get a bad performance review or something you feel being unfair or harsh, it's not the end of the world, okay? Look at it, let it sink, and talk with people who you trust. And especially with regard to is it an alignment problem, a perception problem from what is expected? As Haysing said it very well earlier, it's not worth destroying your life because of that. And then just do, the roadmap, your career roadmap, so that you get the clarity on what you want to achieve. And also that in chit chats within a meeting, if there's one senior leader or manager being there, and during a coffee pause, that you can say, oh, by the way, I've heard that this role is free. See, this is what I up to now I did, and I really want to get into that role because I think that I can do it, and highlight two or three topics why you are the right person, and you get a stakeholder support network behind you. Never leave your career only to one person. And this is more so important in management consultancy world. Never, ever, ever. It's more complicated, but you can do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have a couple of things myself, but I think knowing where you want to be is critical, because you can't just say, hey, I want to go to the next level for the sake of getting promotion and more money. But that's not good enough. So this is where people kind of hit the the main roadblock. And a lot of people that I talk on a weekly basis, daily basis, all come with this problem. It's like they don't know where they want to go. Mm-hmm. Take some time to think about where do you want to be, who you want to be, and why. It is more than money. It's more than title. What makes you feel fulfilled? And the other thing is all about, like, everything is a skill. Having a communication is skill. Uncomfortable communication is a skill set, and it's not politics. Don't call that politics. It's human being having another discussion with human being. And sometimes it doesn't work, then you move on and you have discussion with somebody else. The more you do it, the more muscle you're going to build. And if anything, unless you have discussion and figure out where you are, where that person is at, if you see a big gap, it's time for you to move on. Don't take it so seriously and personally. But if you do not have that discussion and sit there, stew over it for 6 months, 2 years, or 3 years, it is no longer that person, your manager, your leader's fault. It is your fault. And I've lived that. And it is so easy to do it. So um, I think it's critical for anybody at any level to think about where do you want to go from here, and think about the more you get other people achieve what they want, the more likely you're going to achieve what you want. So
Yes.
life is about giving. I'm not saying that you should be a doormat, but life is about giving and strategically asking something in return at the right time. So this is why I love this discussion with Catherine, because I always learn something from her. And take charge of your career and your life, because you're worth it. This is
Absolutely.
so amazing, Catherine.
And we did it on time.
We did
Yes.
it on time. And anybody who finds this interesting, Catherine will make it, bite-sized pieces for people to consume more easily. But there is so much behind how to do it. So please reach out to Catherine or me. We would like to have a chat with you and help you understand where you are, what you're struggling with, and what the possibility would look like.
And always think about, it's like the last word Sunday. Um, it is, I'm sorry. Um, Career is a tactical thing. There's nothing strategic. Your roadmap, where you want to go, what is important to you is strategic because it is your life. But achieving your next step, as well as a performance review or calibration, depending on how it is called in the companies, it is really, really, really only a tactical thing. So, as Heising said, take out the emotion, and if your manager is not maybe the most amazingly communicating person, well, get over it, because most likely you will have or will work with that person maybe 3 years, 4 years max, and it's up also to you to move on.
Yeah, you've
So
got work to do, and now you know you've got
yeah,
some work to do.
thank you so much,
Thank you
also
so much.
Sarah. And then we'll see each other again in 2 weeks' time. No, in 2 weeks' time, we'll need to see what Heising and I we have in store, because we have also our recertification from a high performance institute. So we'll let you know, and we'll see each other very soon. Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.